Hello! You are watching the Video Voters Guide, organized by the League of Women Voters of Portland. All candidates who filed for this race were invited to participate in the Video Voters Guide. However, there are many reasons during a campaign why a candidate may be unable to appear. For comprehensive coverage by the League, including information on candidates who might not have been available for a video interview, visit vote411.org. Information is available in both English and Spanish. Candidates may choose to include additional information on Vote 411, such as their own YouTube videos. Watch, share, and be an informed voter.
Hello, this is Debbie Kay, President of the League of Women Voters of Portland. We're glad you're with us today. We have Nguyen running for David Douglas School District, Position 3. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here today.
Great. Well, what does being a supporter of public education mean to you?
Well, I'm a supporter of public education because in theory, it is a great equalizer. Many families and cultures believe that if you have access to a great education, it means that you can succeed and go further than your parents or your grandparents. But that's only true if public schools are resourced well, and if there are folks making decisions that are going to make equity the focus of their work. All kids deserve equal access to the opportunities provided by public education, no matter their background, nationality, economic status, immigration status, race, or zip code. I have spent the last 12 years of my professional career in public education as a community member, playing many different roles to support students and families. I believe each school has its own rich culture and community that reflects its own neighborhood of students, families, and teachers. And not every school is the same. It is important for me to show up as a Vietnamese American woman of color to center immigrant and refugee experiences and bring visibility to my community, especially with the current racial climate that we're in with increased bias and hate crimes, attacks on our community. And I want public education to be the gateway of friendships, community, resources, and cultural building for every student.
Thank you. Can you tell us, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing our public schools right now and your plan to address it?
Yes, the immediate challenge for public school is addressing the racial, economic, and social emotional challenges impacting students and families during the pandemic, especially as school communities are transitioning to full-time in-person learning. Students have missed nearly a year of in-person learning with their teachers and with their peers. And welcoming students back that doesn't stigmatize students who've had a harder time with distant learning because they had working parents or bad internet access or learning disabilities is really important. I believe that schools need to restructure school climate and create spaces that allow for social emotional support and dialogue for racial trauma. School districts need to put safety as the priority for staff, students, and families. We need to ensure hazard pay and safety for schools' essential workers like nutrition services and our custodial staff. School districts also need to provide effective and professional development for teachers by increasing classroom support and focusing on building community. And schools need more resources to provide housing, basic needs, and food to be the community hub it needs to be for families.
Thank you. How would you say our schools are planning to ensure that students graduate with the knowledge and skills they need to be college and or career ready?
College and career readiness looks different for each student, and more specifically for non-binary, immigrant, refugee, and students of color. The current CTE, which is the career technical educational programs in high schools, are mostly being accessed by more white, affluent students. We need to ensure that the spaces for CTE programs invite different languages, diverse experiences, and economic backgrounds to help students break that generational poverty and stereotypical experiences. My current professional work with Portland Public School focuses on chronic absenteeism. And most people don't know this, but Oregon ranks #3 in the nation with one of the highest absent rates. And this data is often linked to homelessness, poverty, mental health, and disproportionate discipline across the district. And the data usually comprises of Black and Brown students, and it's highest amongst Title I funded schools with ESL and working families. And we need to begin breaking down school data by race and income level to assess each school's community's needs and develop culturally responsive support to ensure students have the right support to be successful in school and afterwards.
Thank you. What district actions do you believe would be most effective at reducing the learning gaps for minority students? Are there partnerships that you could use to help reduce this learning gap?
Yeah, personally, as a second generation Vietnamese American, I understand the lack of access and just trying to navigate the public school system. In my current professional work as an educator in Portland Public Schools, working with diverse communities, I believe that there is a lack of cultural responsiveness in school systems and a lack of representation. We need to diversify the workforce by recruiting, retaining, and advancing staff of color. And schools need to implement equity into staff professional development, curriculum, classroom practices, and at the leadership level. And oftentimes, equity work is learned at the expense of the experiences of staff of color. And we need to value and pay staff of color for the diverse skill sets that they bring to our school communities. And when there's diverse representation in schools, minority students develop gains, and ultimately all students benefit as a result. School districts can elevate existing community partnerships like Sun Community Schools and contracted nonprofits and county partnerships like IRCO, Latino Network, Impact Northwest, Self-Enhancement Inc., that provide culturally responsive support to families in and outside of schools. School districts need to provide contracted stakeholders with similar levels of district staff resources like access to school data and allow community partners to align interventions with school teams. And ultimately, that will create a community of support in and outside of the classroom for all students.
Thank you for that answer. And our last question officially, how will you help students heal from the trauma of COVID? Losses, quarantines, economic instability, online learning, those issues.
Yeah, it's a very complex topic. And first and foremost, schools need to create a community of care by prioritizing relationships with students and parents. School classrooms will need to utilize the social emotional learning tools into the curriculum and restorative justice practices into school and classroom climate. We need to create more access to mental and public health in schools, especially to immigrant, refugee, and families of color. And more than ever, we have seen that schools become the hub of resources for many families. And we need to elevate community partnerships in schools, like I shared earlier, that provide housing, food, and basic need access so that students have what they need to be successful in schools. And for some students who may be struggling with discipline or anxiety in schools, are actually thriving in virtual learning and vice versa. Virtual learning also provided educators a different level of outreach and access to students' lives. And moving forward, school districts can implement the lessons learned from virtual learning and provide different forms of learning engagement. I hope that school districts can continue to create access to Wi-Fi and laptops and really adopt some measures to really recognize that, technology is a basic learning tool.
Thank you. I appreciate your considered answers. I want to remind our viewers that the special district election will be May 18th. As with all elections in Oregon, we vote by mail. The last day to register is Tuesday, April 27th, and ballots will be mailed the following day. Ballots must be received by Tuesday, May 18th at 8 p.m. Postmarks don't count. Please plan to mail early or use a drop-off site. Additional information is available at the League-sponsored website, vote411.org. Please be an informed voter and share these resources with your family and friends. This is Debbie Kay with the League of Women Voters of Portland. Thank you for joining us today.